So switching to a little bit of entrepreneurship, right? I know you have a little bit of a hard stop, but I'll try to
It's
fasten the
okay. No
questions.
worry. We can keep going.
Okay.
This is the good
Okay.
part. We're getting into the good
Okay.
stuff here.
So I want to make this episode like an entrepreneurship crash course. So say if I have an idea, where do I start? How do I start? Is going to college mandatory, or can I start somewhere with? I just have an idea and I want to start a business. How would I do that?
So, going to college, taking a course is not mandatory, but I will say that entrepreneurship, in my opinion, is not an inherited skill. It's a learned skill. So, it's something that you either are going to learn the hard way when you jump out of an airplane without a parachute, convinced that you're going to build one cascading down to the earth because your idea is so great. And after you slam into the ground and that really hurts, you realize that was dumb. I'm never going to jump out of an airplane. Or you can take a course or you can watch YouTube videos. And you have to be careful how you curate information that's out there. But there is access to information about it. But I'll give you like 4 or 5 critical things to think about if you want to start a business. And I think these things will help you to not start a business that was doomed to fail. And that, even though you might be disappointed, will help you a great deal in life because it preserves resources for another idea. So, the first thing you have to be able to answer in order to start a business is you have to be able to articulate what exactly the problem is that you've identified. If you can't explain that in a language that other people can understand, don't work on that idea because you're not building a business for yourself to solve a problem in your life. You're hopefully building a business to solve problems in other people's lives. So you've got to be able to clearly explain what the problem is. That's the first thing, or what you think the problem is. The second question you have to answer is whether or not that problem exists in the real world, or is it just in your life, in your head, and something that you've observed, or do other people actually have this problem? So you've got to get out there and you've got to talk to people and find out if the problem that you think is there, or maybe you're experiencing yourself, actually exists. That's number two. If it's just in your life or something you passively observed, but it's not really out there, why bother going through the hoops of starting a business around a non-problem, right? You don't want to. That's like the worst thing you want to do is solve a non-problem. That's a recipe for disaster. That's number two. Number three is you have to determine whether or not the problem is an annoyance or inconvenience for somebody or a really painful problem. Um, Ideally, think of it through the lens of, is my solution going to be medicine or is it going to be a vitamin? Most people that take vitamins will tell you that vitamins are good to take, and they try to take a 1 a day vitamin every day. But if they miss taking vitamins for a few days or a few weeks, it's not the end of the world. But with medicine, prescribed medicine, if you miss taking medicine, it can have very, very serious effects on a person's health. Ideally, you want to be in a business where you're solving a problem that is extraordinarily painful for somebody in their life. It's something that's presenting a major challenge, and hopefully, your solution is the remedy for that particular challenge. So that's number three. Is this a painful problem? And if the answer to any one of those three so far is no, either keep working on the idea or kill the idea and move on to something else. So, what's the problem? Does it exist in the real world? And is it a painful problem? The fourth thing you want to find out is, are people willing to pay for a solution to that painful problem? Some people might not be. It depends on the price of what that solution is, so you have to know in advance roughly what it's going to cost you to produce this solution. But you don't want to say to somebody, if let's say your idea is a organic food truck because you think there's a limited access for people to eat healthy, reasonably priced organic food. You don't want to go to somebody and say, "Here's my menu with the prices on it. Would you buy this solution?" Because people will say yes, no, yes, no, yes, no to the prices. You want to say, here's a description of my food items. How much would you pay for these items? And let the person tell you what they would pay. And the reason that that's important is, I'm sure you know, Raghu, is if you tell people what something costs, let's say a healthy sandwich is $12, and they're like, yeah, I'd buy that for $12. You'll never know if that person was willing to pay $20 for that sandwich. And you've just left $8 on the table. So you've got to find out, are people willing to pay? And are they willing to pay enough to not just cover the cost of making the sandwich, but hopefully a premium above that so I can make money and a living for myself? And I think when you go through that process, it'll help you a lot along the way. And it doesn't take long, by the way, to answer those 4 or 5 questions. It'll help you along the way to recognize I'm in it for the right reason or I'm not. And then lastly, in my opinion, especially today, it is critically important that your business, like this podcast, has to have a purpose that transcends making money. There has to be something that the public sees in your business that is beyond the exchange of a good or service for money. For the first time in the history of the United States, as one example, the majority of the population are millennials or younger. 52% of the population are millennials or younger. And when you look at millennials, Gen Z, and the youngest generation born 2010 or later, I think referred to as Gen Alpha, you find similarities across those three demographic groups. Number one, they're the most educated generations in history, and you're a testament to that. Number two, they are the most diverse generations in history, and you're also a testament to that. Number three, they are the most inclusive and accepting generations in history. And knowing you the way I know you have a very inclusive mindset. And number four, and probably the most important from a business standpoint, is these generations are the most cause focused generations in history. And you also are a testament to that. So if you're a person thinking about starting a business, all things being equal, if your business does something cool for the world, beyond delivering the solution to your customers of whatever it is you're delivering, you're going to outcompete almost all your other competitors that are just making a solution and not doing anything good for the world. Millennials are willing to switch brands to cause focused brands and pay more for those solutions. And I think that that is transformative. And that's why I'm most optimistic about the future. You know, with all of the short-term noise that we hear in our political discourse and elsewhere, I'm really optimistic about the future because I see the rising tide of consumers. And the rising tide of consumers are not only expecting and asking more of companies, but they're demanding more from companies. And that is going to change the landscape of how business gets done into the future. And that's really exciting. You're going to be part of that.
Awesome. I'm super excited.